Hello, this is Nancy Reynolds, Stampin' with Nutsy, and we are featuring for our bonus bundle this month the Season of Chic stamp set, the Chic dies, which are a bundle, and lots of pretty papers. So let's get started with the paper. I'm using the Distressed Gold. I like to keep my scraps in a smaller bag inside the larger one. I have lots of little gold pieces, from bits and pieces from here and there, just things I've cut off, and I like to keep those in one of our stamp cases. They fit really nice, and they're handy to use when I need one. As a matter of fact, we're going to pull out a little piece right now. Maybe I'll pull out a couple pieces so I can show you what we're doing. And the most beautiful paper. This is the Specialty Designer Series paper. Again, I've got my smaller container with some card front size cuts and some bits and pieces that I've already used. So that's our paper for today. Oh, no, not quite. Because besides that gold paper, we're going to use Mango Melody, Evening Evergreen, and Soft Succulent. Just bits and pieces. It's always nice. I don't know about you, but I love using up bits and pieces. I feel like I'm doing my job and being very thrifty when I do that. So here's our card. It's a thank you card with lots of die cutting. And I want to show you what I've done. The inside and then the outside is decorated too, because if you've got the pretty inside, you really need the pretty envelope too. So I have used, for my sentiment, I've used these are the Stylish Shapes dies. I used the largest banner. And this is what I wanted to show you. Here's a piece of the Distressed Gold Specialty Designer Series paper. And I've got the split textures dies, or split card texture dies. And this is what I did. I took one and I put it up at the corner, leaving a little bit of an edge on each side. And the other one I put at the bottom of that piece. I ran them through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss, and that's where I got the card front. You can do it many different ways. I could have cut out from the Designer Series paper and put the gold piece underneath so you could see the gold through, but I liked it sitting on top. So I used this one for my sample, and I'm going to use this one on my card today. And the other dies we used, again, are in the Chic dies. And the Texture Chic is the name of the bundle, I believe. Here's the banner die I'm going to use. And I made just pretty little gold bits and pieces out of these. These cut out my stamped images. And this gold piece overlays the top of the leaf, and this gold piece overlays the top of the flower. All right, you will actually see how that comes together, because here we have our card. The first thing we have, I have 2 stamped leaves, and here are the pieces that go over the top of them. We'll put them up there, because you can't have enough gold, right? There we are. This is the piece that's going on the inside of my card. Just a little strip that was cut off. Here's our flower, the gold that goes on it. I did already emboss and cut out this, but I want to show you something fun that we've got. And here is our the split textured card die. And so all I did was I sliced a little bit close on this side, but I left a little edge, and it's just going to fit the card front perfectly. Our Designer Series paper, I am not using the specialty side. I am using I call it side B. It's 4 by 5 1/4 inches, or 10 by 14.4 centimeters. And I have that exact same size in a basic white to go on the inside of the card, an envelope. And here's our card base. It's Mango Melody. It's 5.5 by 8.5 inches, scored and folded at 4.25 inches. And then that's 14.9 by 21 centimeters, scored and folded at 10.5 centimeters. And I've already got the scoring and folding done. So let's take this off, and I'll show you how easy this was to put together. I will say it took a lot of time to die cut everything. So first we have our designer series paper, and this is kind of a multi-directional, so it's kind of like, how would you like to put it on? I think I like it this way. I'm not sure it makes a lot of difference. I am going to use, for much of my gluing, the Tombow multi-purpose glue because it gives a little bit of wiggle room. And I noticed today that I needed a little more wiggle room while I was putting other things together. Now this is how our split texture die piece is going to go on in the distressed gold. It's a little different look than the lattice, and I do like the lattice better, but I think this is pretty. And I wanted to do them both. Okay, let's just put, if you wanted to, you could use our adhesive sheets, but I didn't think of the adhesive sheets until after I had already cut this out. So we're not using adhesive sheets today. It was pretty much after I'd cut everything out that I thought of adhesive sheets. Just a little bit. I do want this well adhered. And Tombow glue dries clear. So if I make a little bit of a mess, it's okay. Just going to line this up with my designer series paper and put it in place. There we are. So I had this done for a couple of days, and I looked at it and I kept thinking, what am I going to do? And I decided that I would cut a circle. And I forgot to cut that out. So we're going to do that one together. I again used the shape size. And I believe I used the second largest. I did. I wonder if that's a good size for the stamp and the small cut and emboss machine. Well, let's see. I'll open it up. I think that looks just fine. It'll fit. I keep my scraps from my cardstock in with my colored cardstock. I just put it in a file folder that I tape the sides. And so I should be able to find a piece of cardstock. Well, let's hope I can find a piece of cardstock that's big enough for the circle and not too big for my cut and emboss machine. So what we're going to do is we're going to take two number 2s. Instead of the die cutting the number 1, I actually like to use the number 3. It's just the teensiest bit thinner. And I think it goes through machine a little easier, which I am going to turn this way. Oh, look at that, it's going to go through. I am so impressed. So we've got a number 3, a number 2, and I learned that little trick from Kylie Bertucci in Australia. She was using her cute little cut and emboss. The other thing about the cut and emboss machine, I think that it tends to move around a little bit on the table. So I grab my silicone mat and I put it on my silicone mat. And I think that gives it just a tiny bit more stability. So here we go, putting it in and rolling it through. And I think I'm going to roll it back. Really not necessary, but I kind of like things to end up right in front of me. And voila, there is our circle with a lovely stitched edge. Fortunately, I have everything else cut out, so we're ready to go. I'm going to keep this out because I might be doing some gluing on top of it. So what I did was I stamped, I want to show you how I stamped too. Because what I found is I've got Mango Melody ink. I also have my soft succulent ink and my evening evergreen ink. And I found when I was doing this that it was so much easier to stamp in a darker color. So I stamped in my Mango Melody. Let's see, there's a little spot that kind of comes to a sharper point on the die. So there's our dark ink. There's another stamp because it's two-step stamping. And here's our sharper point right in there. Some people are really organized and they mark that on the back side of the die with a marker. Let's see how well I do this. I am just going to stand up so I can get a little bit better angle. Move the ink out of the way so I don't put my hand in it. It's so much easier to line up when you stamp the dark color first. There we are. And it's not perfectly lined up, but the gold is going to cover that. And I did the very same thing, except using soft succulent ink for the leaf. I went with the detailed leaf. I'm going to move those out of the way. I did the detailed leaf. And then I did the stamp that fills in. And I stamped it off first because I really wanted the variation of color. It is hard with the phone in the way, isn't it? Well, let's see how close I get. Oh, that's practically perfect. I did 2 of those. So I'm going to show you that the die I used for that, our dies now fits nice and snug on our stamped images. And again, here's that little point area. And it just goes in like that. And I cut them out. But since I've already done those, because I was sort of organized, maybe not perfectly, but sort of organized, I've got them right here. So here's one, here's the second one I did, and then these glue over the top. Move that out of the way, move this in, and I will glue one together. I've got 2 glued together for us. And I just took my glue. Again, adhesive sheets might have made this easier. And I just dotted it. So I didn't want to get too much anywhere, but just a little bit in a lot of places. Okay, here we go. And then I lined it up at the bottom and the leaves and put it down. Now I don't know if you can see this, but these are really cool dies. Not only do they cut it out so it fits, but they have these little embossed spots. So you've got a lot of texture with it. Maybe that's why it's called Chic. So here we are, we've got 2 leaves, and it's the same with the gold. I just lined up this little broken piece where it doesn't quite close, lines up with that little pointy piece that we were talking about earlier. Or very close to it. It really does go in there. Because I have done several of these. No, maybe it's these. It goes this way. This is the broken piece. It lines up the 3 little bumps along the side. So that's what I have right here, all put together and dry. Let me close this mango melody before I make a mess. And then what I did was I started arranging the gold pieces on my circle. And I wanted to be able to put them down and make sure they stayed. And it didn't really matter. Some people would put glue, some would use stamp and seal. I kind of wanted quite a bit of holding power here. So I used tear and tape. And with tear and tape, burnish it down and lift off the top because it's a double-sided tape. I guess I didn't burnish that one too well. There we are. You just tear off the strip. You could use glue dots if you wanted to. And here we are. And I just started assembling. I thought I actually put it on my card because I don't want to get too carried away. There's 2. I did one of the second largest dies. I did a little one, which I'm going to move up a little higher. And here is this one. I wanted to get almost a half, looking like a half, and then I took my dimensionals and I grabbed my scissors without the ribbon on them, my snips. I do have one for ribbon, and I put just a good piece. I use all my edges. It's important to use them all. We paid for them, so we should use them. And then I put this kind of in the middle, maybe a little bit higher than the middle. So we've got a good start. I'm going to put my thanks under here. So we're going to set that aside for the moment because I want to show you some new things we have. I don't know if you've seen them or not. The new tray, the embossing buddy, and the metallic embossing powders. Really fun. A new brush, a pair of tongs. They're not tongs. Tongs you use in your kitchen and they're big. Tweezers, that's what they are. So this is going here. I don't want this to stick anywhere, so I'm putting it face down on my silicone mat because glue doesn't stick to the silicone mat. And I'm going to take my stamp and seal. I am going to put this on dimensionals, but for right now, I just want this to be held in place, the ribbon. This is our open weave ribbon, and it is in the evening evergreen color. And I'm zigzagging it across. I want a little bit to show. And I'm going to grab my snips with the ribbon on them so that they don't get confused with my others because I don't want to ruin them. Paper dull scissors. And dull scissors are not good on ribbon. So let's just take a look and see what we've got. This one's going to go more sideways, I see. So I'm going to take my ribbon off and realize that once again, I eyed it wrong. And so I will put it on this way first. This way. So that's one nice thing about seal. It also gives you a little wiggle room. You can take things off for a little bit. 2 and 3. That looks better. That's so often I get the direction wrong. The other day I was gluing something that I only needed to glue an edge, or was only supposed to glue an edge on. And sure enough, I glued the wrong edge and had to start over. I don't know, does anyone else do that stuff? Makes me feel like an idiot when I do it. Okay. We'll just put some dimensionals on here. Give this. So this card probably is going to take more postage than a normal card size. We'll put this one here. And I'm going to cut a piece with 2 little points and put it in the middle because I don't want a saggy middle. You don't need sagging embellishments. Okay. And I should be putting those in the garbage can because just like all of the others, those little bits of paper get all over everywhere. Alrighty. See, as I told you, they're everywhere. They're not confined. Here we go. We will put this on in about the middle. And set it aside for just a moment because I want to show you the embossing. This is what I use my little strip of Unique Evergreen for, is I embossed with Versamark. But the first thing I did is I got my little embossing buddy out, which helps with, kind of takes the oils off and the static electricity. And so you just rub it over your paper. And then when you emboss, or you use the Versamark, and I've got my thanks, and I know that this is not the biggest piece of paper in the world. It's just a scrap, so I want to make sure that I get this in about the middle with space on each side. And here we go. We just put that down. And now I've got some gold. Oh, I'm off camera again. Embossing powder makes a mess of Versamark. So always put your top on and put it away before you play with your embossing powder. So here we are. I just put my embossing powder over. And there we are. Isn't that great? And then I'm going to put my top on before I play with my heat gun because we do not need embossing powder all over the craft room. Normally I would put this away too, but I'm going to put it far away from me. And as you know, heat guns make noise. And it'll take a moment to heat up. But I love watching embossing powder melt. It makes me happy. It's like magic. It changes from that icky powder with a very matte finish to a very pretty, shiny thanks. And then what I would do is I love embossing. I really do. I took this and I centered it and I cut it out. And so that's why we have one that's all done. And this is going to be going up and over. I am going to clean up by just tucking that under. I got a little carried away with my tear and tape. So I was much more careful with the sample card to make sure I had that all hidden. There, we've got that one hidden. And we're going to take this one, because it turned out we didn't need it. Let's see if I can get most of that off. And it's okay that it's not coming off the card as well as I would like, because that's where we're going to put our sentiment. And because we have different heights on our card, I really think that we want to, bad choice, good choice. We want to use a little bit of glue on it along with our dimensionals. So here's our card. Here's our sentiment that I threw on the floor. Here are our dimensionals. I'll make these a little smaller. So this is going to go up under here. And notice that I left these loose. And I like that. I like having that little bit of movement. So here's our thanks. It's going right here. So I want dimensionals on this side. Oh, so this is what I did earlier. I forgot to use my embossing buddy. And so, thankfully, paper has two sides, you know. It's a good thing about paper. So I just turned it over to do a new one. And then I'm going to take a little bit of glue and put it along here. And this is tucking under and coming over just a tiny bit. This is glued down, and now if we tried to glue this flat, it would have looked really funny because this is taller in our dimensions. So there's the front of our card. All ready to go. Lots of gold and lots of glitz. The inside is really easy. I stamped an evening evergreen. A sentiment from the stamp set. And it is, "You are amazing beyond measure." I thought that would be kind of nice on a thank you card. So I stamped that. And then I took that little strip of designer series paper that was left over, decided that this looks like a leaf going up, so that's a good direction. I just took a little bit of glue, lined it up. I left a little bit of white showing. There we are. And then when it's a little bit longer than what you need, you just turn it over. You've got a nice edge there. And that's one thing I like about, I don't use my multi-purpose glue for, is the insides when I'm using white, because I think it has a tendency to show a little line. There we go. There's our card. We need our envelope. And I have that designer series paper. Let me get it back out and grab a piece. I want so this is going to go through the postal service. So we know that we don't want to make them angry. So I make sure that I've got quite a bit of glue on the envelope, because I do not want it to come loose in any of the machines. So there we are. And then I burnish it down really good. This is also a very pretty side, and I used that in a different project. And you just trim using your envelope flap as the guide. There we go. Now I'm going to step away for just a moment, and I'm going to cut a strip off of this. I'm just using a thin strip, and I'm going to do the same thing we did with the inside of the card. As I'm going to put glue, oh, got a little carried away there. Let's spread that out. I've got this on the top. I know it's a little too long, so I'm not going clear to the edge. And I'll just start here and put it across. And I left a little bit of white, burnish it down, make sure it's going to stay. And you can cut off the edge. And there we are. We have a pretty envelope, and we have a pretty card. So I hope you enjoyed making this with me. I don't know, I think I still like the lattice better, maybe because it's showing more of the designer series paper through it. But I think they're both pretty. I really like them, and I hope you have gotten this bundle, the Texture Chic bundle, and enjoy using it and make lots of pretty cards. And I hope from this PDF that you have gotten ideas you can use, and from the videos that we're making. Thank you so much, and until I see you again, happy crafting!